Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Irish Hypnotherapy Conference special in the Mind Explorations group. We are preparing, and we're in the last week before the Irish Hypnotherapy Conference on April 5th and 6th in Dublin. If you would like to join us, there's still tickets available. I think they're running low now, but we are. Andy and I, Andy who's with me right now, speakers there, along with another 30, world-class speakers from around the world, international speakers with all kinds of lovely subjects. And today, it's me who's in the spotlight, and I have brought somebody who is going to interview me for a change. This is a very weird situation for me. So let's welcome Andy Arbuthnot, hypnotist
Hello.
from Bangor Island, Northern
From
Ireland.
Bangor, yes. Yes, I am.
There
I'm
we
from
are.
Bangor, Northern Ireland. So, you and I are both speakers at the Irish Hypnotherapy Conference, and you interviewed me kindly for my subject, but now it's my turn to return the favor. So, as we did the last time, are you ready for me to just fire ahead?
Fire ahead, yes.
No, nervous, nervous. Okay, don't be nervous. Right, so here we go. You know plenty about this. So, you are speaking on reframing tinnitus for better client outcomes at the Irish Hypnotherapy Conference. What exactly do you mean by that? Could
What
you give us a
exactly?
little bit of a deep dive into what you've learned and what you've studied about tinnitus or tinnitus?
A little deep dive. Okay, so I have spent about a year or even more now looking into tinnitus. And as you might know, I become a bit of a terrier when I'm researching a subject that interests me.
Yep.
And I found that we don't do enough for our clients, and that we can, according to the new science, we can achieve a lot more with hypnotherapy to relieve tinnitus and maybe completely get rid of it. And that's why I've specialized in the subject. And that's what I'm going to talk about next week in a very structured way.
Yes. So interestingly, when that's something that I don't understand. Whenever you say we don't do enough for our clients, what do you mean?
Okay, so most hypnotherapists, uh, right, let me start like this. So one of the main researchers into tinnitus, Dirk de Ridder from Belgium, I believe he is, said last year, 20 years ago, we knew nothing about tinnitus,
Okay.
nothing. So 20 years ago is about 2004. And most people still work with the knowledge that we had back then.
Okay.
So doctors still work on that. You've usually got a 17-year research gap between the research coming out and the application in practice, even in
17
GP
years.
offices. 17 years, that's the average. Yeah. That's another paper I've got, by the way. So, yeah, we've got a big lag in the knowledge actually being applied. And what we normally do with hypnosis is we reduce the sound, or we move away, attention from the noise. And well, sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. And very often we also work on managing it, which is like in chronic diseases, you get, medications or you don't get anything. And the doctor will tell you, well, eat a healthy diet, exercise, and reduce stress.
Yeah,
But
brown
you
noises,
don't normally
different
get
colored
much
noises.
deeper than that. Yeah. So habituation is one of the main things that we do with hypnotherapy at the moment, and we can do, as I said, much more. Would you
Okay.
like to know some details about that?
Well, I suppose, how did you get into the subject of tinnitus? And it's quite rare that anyone specializes in it. How come you got so interested in it?
Okay, so my mum has had tinnitus since I was, I think, about 8 years old.
Okay.
And I had no idea what it was that she had. I knew she was, off work. She used to be a teacher. And they're one of the prime subjects for having tinnitus, stress related, mainly. And her life completely changed, really. And she's now still is, how many years on is that? I'm not going to give away my age, but a few decades. So she became a total social recluse, and she refused after a while to do anything about it. It's still at a level of 8 now, even though she's got hearing aids and, she's normally okay with it. She can, um, just put it into the background, and she's habituated to it. But
Okay.
it still stops her from speaking to people, having conversations, etc. So, and then I had it a few years ago, about 5 years ago, but only for a while, for
Okay.
like 5 months, quite bad, and then it went away. And then I met a friend who said, "Yeah, I've got it really bad, but fuck it, sorry."
Oh, I
Yeah,
know who it was then.
and
Okay.
then that kind of yeah, made me think, why do people react so differently to it?
Okay.
You know, um, and then it just, the whole psychology of tinnitus made me curious, and also, how can I help the people that have given up, basically? And you do have a sort of a learned helplessness in tinnitus and several other chronic diseases. So, and most of what I say is going to come from research, is research
Mhm.
backed, and I can find you the papers if I wanted to. If I have a hypothesis, I'll say that. Yeah, and that's what set it off, because, how can I help those people that, my mom's not the person she used to be. She's really, really changed her personality through it. And why did mine just go away? And that's just, yeah, if I can have it go away, then everybody should be able to.
Okay. So you mentioned stress.
Hmm.
What are the main other causes that
Okay.
you've learned about in tinnitus?
Okay. So you've got approximately 200 causes and comorbidities in tinnitus.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a very, very heterogeneous disease with lots of different pathologies as well. So you can group them into 4 groups. That's auditory problems, that's hearing loss. That's for many, many people, that's the case. But it can also come from, middle ear infections. And that's what I had as a kid, by the way, as well. From vestibular issues, Meniere's disease, or holes in the eardrum, anything that has the ability to change your hearing in the ear or going into the cochlea. And then you have somatosensory issues. That would be the nerves going past, or muscular issues, neck issues, etc. That can also have an effect on your hearing and on the way that your hearing is then processed, or the sound is processed. Then you have psychological issues. That is stress, that is trauma, there's all those kinds of things. And the limbic system actually has a direct connection to hearing and can modulate the sounds that you hear in that way. So you don't just have one pathway that goes up from your ear, you've also got some that go down towards the auditory cortex, the auditory brain. And then as the fourth one, and that's quite a new one, you've got an inflammatory bunch of causes. So that's anyone who has autoimmune or inflammatory diseases. They can have that moving up and affecting the ear and the hearing. And those are basically the 4 main causes that we can, or things that we can work with.
Okay.
And the funny thing is that those causes, they are the initial triggers quite often, that the hearing loss, for example, but at some point they can become disconnected. And when tinnitus becomes chronic, actually the changes in the brain, the excitability and all of those changes in neuroplasticity that you have, they expand to other parts of the brain when they become chronic, and it becomes with time a part of the person's identity.
Okay. Okay. So whenever it gets to that, well, actually, firstly, let's start with this. You mentioned the psychology of tinnitus.
Mm-hmm.
Could you expand on that for me?
The psychological issues.
Yeah, well, just you used the term psychology of tinnitus. And,
Oh, that. Mhm.
I think one of the questions I would have is, can you expand on what you mean by that a bit further?
Okay, the psychology of tinnitus. So that was, I refer to learned helplessness, etc.
Yeah.
Um, so what happens when you get tinnitus? Some people just get it very slightly and they don't have much of an issue. However, you do get a certain loop, a vicious cycle, so to speak, between the sound and the stress, and it'll exacerbate one another. So you've got the stress because there's a sound, and that again goes back to exacerbate the noise. So that becomes a cycle. You can also become anxious. There's people who, from the tinnitus, or we don't quite know which way it goes. Either they have a propensity They are likely to get anxiety or depression, or they get anxiety or depression from the tinnitus. So they're very closely connected. Also, PTSD is also very, they share the same pathways, or very similar pathways.
So Mattis, I hope I'm saying your name correctly, and I had to just move my glasses there, has asked a question. Can you give some reference about tinnitus and hypnotherapy? I suppose if I were to expand on that, that would be one of my questions would be, are there any sort of techniques that you would use more often than not, or is it more case by case?
Case by case.
Okay.
Because people show up very, very differently. You've got different avatars, so to speak. So you've got, for example, women whose tinnitus started when they had a baby, through hormonal changes, or when they went into menopause. That's quite common. Then you've got the veteran who's been through, lots of war noise, gunfire, explosions, etc., and may also have had trauma. By the way, very often tinnitus has two or more causes, not just one trigger, but two or more, and that's quite well known in various fields. But, whether you come from the inflammatory side or from the psychological or the neuroscientific side, very often two or more triggers. So you could have PTSD and the hearing loss, so that would be combined to end up in tinnitus, more likely.
Okay. So whenever you talk about hearing loss, is that meaning complete deafness, loss of hearing?
No.
What do you mean? Sorry.
No. There's so you will very often people lose hearing in certain frequencies. Normally audiologists measure up to 8,000 kilohertz. It can be higher as well. It can be hidden so that it's not detectable by the hearing tests. But the way hearing works is the cochlea, the way hearing goes into the ear is it hits the eardrum, the bones, they move, they vibrate, and multiply the noise by 20 approximately, hits the oval window, that's filled with liquid behind there, and that whooshes past the little hairs in the cochlea. And each one of those hairs is connected to a nerve in the auditory system. So that gets transferred, and you get, it's called a tonotopic map. So you've got like a long harp or long piano.
Okay.
Let's stick with the piano one. Okay. And certain keys just don't work anymore because they just break because of the hearing loss, the trauma, whatever you had. And then those frequencies, because everything goes from low to high, those frequencies aren't transmitted anymore, and they can vary. And there are various theories on why the noise then happens. Either the brain compensates, that's one of the oldest theories, or it's just in general seen as maladaptive neuroplasticity, or it could also be from the trauma, from the danger in case of PTSD, of war issues, gunfire, etc., or noisy concerts even, that your limbic system, works like, oh, there used to be danger. There was danger last time you heard that noise, and your hairs got destroyed. You were in danger, so we better make sure that you're always alert.
Okay. So insofar as, let's say that the hairs get destroyed from loud noises, whether that be gunfire, bombs, loud music, whatever it may be, if that's the case for that specific type of, I'm using the word damage for want of a better word, if it was that type of tinnitus, is that not irreparable?
At the moment, it is irreparable.
Okay.
The hearing loss itself. However, there have been studies on rats. Rats are, often used for tinnitus studies, in rebuilding the hair. So that was last year or the year before. So they can, or there is a potential to rebuild hair.
Okay.
Yeah.
So whenever it comes to tinnitus and hypnotherapy, for someone who has, let's say, that form of tinnitus, which is caused by loud music or caused by gunfire or whatever, what way do we work with someone like that?
Okay, right. So the point is, the what's often said is that I have hearing loss, so I will keep that tinnitus forever. Or your GP even says it, your doctor says it, or there's nothing we can do.
Oh, so like
You'll
a
have to live
negative
with it. That's
suggestion. Okay.
exactly.
Okay.
And that's what you have to sort out first, because there's lots of people who have hearing loss and do not have tinnitus. There's
Yeah.
also lots of people who have tinnitus and it goes away again. So there was a biobank study a few years ago, a British biobank study, and they found that about 20-25% of people
Mhm.
from a population that wasn't a tinnitus patient, so there's a difference.
Okay.
Just normal people, yep, they had tinnitus, and then 4 years later they didn't.
Okay.
And tinnitus patients are a different population, so they're more likely to keep the tinnitus because it's to them it's more of an issue, more of a problem, and that's
Yeah.
the cycle again.
So they believe it's more of a problem than perhaps it is. Um, Michelle has just put in a message. Do some people hear no noise in the ears? Or if I put it differently, I'm very sorry, my glasses do work sometimes. Or if I put it differently, do we all hear some level of noise? And do we call it tinnitus only when the noise bothers us?
That's a very good question, and yes,
Hmm.
that can be. The thing is, the brain activity is different in a lot of tinnitus clients, tinnitus patients. They've found that in brain studies, but we all have a certain level of neuronal activity of, just firing for the fun of it, or for no specific reason that doesn't have anything to do with hearing.
Okay.
And yes, we are able to suppress that. And that's the funny thing. A very small study just a few months ago found, it's a preliminary, very small study, that there is a sort of switch, because some people, they experience tinnitus, but then it's just gone for much of the day or at night, etc. And that is in the pregenual anterior cingulate cortex and the dorsal ACC, one part of the brain. So if that becomes active, the tinnitus is off,
Okay.
and vice versa. So what we can do is work trying to have the client imagine that switch, but that doesn't work for everyone.
No. Okay. So let's say, because you're a specialist in this and you do an awful lot of work with this, let's say we have a client who comes with tinnitus, right? Firstly, what is the typical client for tinnitus?
Hmm. As I said, there is no typical client. There's
Okay.
there's lots of different ones. There's some that are just slightly bothered, and they're just annoyed by the noise. Then others who really have a lot of anxiety around it and who can't sleep. And if they're really, really, really anxious and you can't even work with them, to reduce the anxiety, that would be normally the first step. Then I
Mhm.
would send them to a doctor to be seen for, something like anxiety medication, etc. Because if I can't do anything about it, and that sometimes does happen,
Mm.
then it's wiser to send them for medication. Um, but normally, what we do as a first step is reduce the anxiety, and then change the relationship to the noise. So what you ask is, okay, dear client, how do you see the tinnitus? Is it annoying? Is it an enemy? Is it something you have to fight? Because any of those terms are going to put them into stress, into the parasympathetic state, fight or flight.
Mm.
And that's exactly what you don't want, because you'll have cortisol and all kinds of stuff going through the body and activating the stress response, which again
Yeah.
activates, or it makes the tinnitus sound stronger.
Okay. So in most cases, are you working with tinnitus as a symptom rather than an issue?
It well, it's both. If it bothers clients a lot, it's even officially called a disorder,
Okay.
but it usually is seen as a symptom. So in the in the belief, or that the saying that the issue is never the issue. Yes, we do work with a lot of different issues. So, as I said, very often you have two or more causes. And people who have, for example, adverse childhood experiences, trauma, etc., they are much more likely to experience stress as something terrible later on. That they don't have a healthy relationship to stress, or they just go up much faster than other people. And then if you remove that trauma or reduce it, I mean, you work with trauma all the time as well. So that very often helps reduce the stress level and just calm the client down a lot, and just make them see the current stress a lot calmer.
Okay.
And yeah, so
Yeah, I've worked successfully with helping people with tinnitus, right? And I have my way of doing it, and it has worked. But I suppose from a hypnotherapist's point of view, what, if you want to elaborate, that would be great. And what would you say are the best techniques, approaches, protocols to use to approach tinnitus in general? Now, let's say we're not talking about someone who has, irreparable damage. Let's say someone who has tinnitus as a result of whatever that is fixable,
yeah,
right? Um,
even tinnitus with hearing loss is fixable or reducible.
okay. Would you elaborate on that for us?
Okay, right. Techniques. It's not so much about techniques as getting the client to actually believe that it's possible. And I'm not talking about being a snake oil salesman. It's just you've got these negative beliefs from doctors. There's nothing we can do, and that's why I do all the research, because the research pretty clearly states to me that yeah, it is possible to reduce it, to improve quality of life, to do a lot about it. And I see it in my clients as well, of course. And they've tried everything already. Everything. Hypnotherapy, I mean, it's usually the last thing anyone tries, because it's still seen in a lot of circles as hocus pocus, as woo. And yeah, I'm here to change that, really. That's what I would like to achieve with that. And so techniques start with giving the client not just hope, but the belief that it can change, because if they don't believe it, it won't happen.
So that's where I'd like to interject, because let's say someone's coming to us as a last ditch attempt or the last hope, right? Which we all hear frequently. How do you, if someone has been told by their doctor, which happens lots, that, you just have to live with it, there's nothing you can do about that. How do you rekindle that belief?
Okay, so I do talk about the research that has come out, which is very promising, to be honest. And I do talk about the 17-year gap that we have, the lag in research and application in practice. And it's usually a misconception, because the belief is we do not have a cure for tinnitus, and we will never find one, because it's not one thing. It's lots of different things which just end in the same symptom, in the ringing. So that's how I start. And they wouldn't normally come to me unless they've been sent by a wife or a friend or whatever, and then I don't always take them on. So unless I see that they're really willing to go for it, I don't take them on.
No, fair enough.
Yeah, it's like I've tried everything else, so I want to see that this doesn't work either. So that sort of thing, I don't do that.
Yeah, well, that's a common thing, isn't it? Because there's a lot of people who do that with everything. So Stephen has said, I have a client that started with an ear infection abroad. She then flew home and got, I believe that's meds. Things have spiraled since it, but it's
MDDS.
Okay,
Mark syndrome.
Do you know what? You Stephen, do you want to ask the question there?
Okay. Hi, Astrid. Hi, everybody. Yeah, the client that I have, exactly what Andrew said. She went abroad. She used to flying back and forth to Thailand quite a lot. It does independently, very independent woman, very independent, on her own all the time. She's sort of mid-40s. And while she was abroad this time, she got an ear infection. So she had some treatment there, but it hadn't quite gone. She then flew home, and then she was dizzy, sick, really, really ill. And she was obviously, she feels with MDDS, if people don't know it, it's Mal-de-Bark syndrome. So you can get from plane, flying, childbirth even. And there's no cure for it, they say. But I'm working on that because I can stop it. I've stopped it with 2 people now, all got it under control. So come from a 10 down to 1. But with this lady, her health just spiraled downwards after that. The MDDS was what I first contacted her about, because it's something that I really interested in want to do. And she's convinced almost that this, with the tinnitus came then with when she got home with the infection and everything. It doesn't bother her overnight. So what you were saying, Astrid, that part of the brain, really, I'll have to listen back to this because I really need to look at that. She sleeps like a log. She sleeps like a log. She sleeps very well. There's no problem with that. As soon as she wakes, she's got it. But when she was 2, so everything that you said really does come into this category, because when she was 2, she had trauma as far as abandonment was concerned. And the problem that I find with a lot of these clients is, and clients that come for other things, is actually getting them to reveal what's happened, because they don't sort of consider what happened to them at 2, 3, 4. I had one the other day, and I said, what happened to you between 5 and 7? And how I got that information is a little bit different to hypnotherapy. But but with her, it's just, and then she gets problems with, like you say, stress, anxiety. And it's the stress and anxiety that seem to then compound it. And it doesn't seem to be the tinnitus that's the problem, or the MDDS. It's the stress and anxiety, because she's had all these therapies. One thing that the NHS, and I don't know if you've heard of this happening anywhere, was they put her into a booth, blindfolded her, and then they said what they said they were going to do. There was consultants that did this, and they fired water into her ears. And so
she didn't know that beforehand.
Yeah, they did say what they were going to do, and they talked her through it. But she said it was so traumatic because she's blindfolded as well, and they told her to read down the alphabet, and while she's reading down the alphabet, actually think of animals' names. So she was terrified before, but she's now like total nervous wreck.
Right. So I have no idea why they would have done that or what purpose that serves. Sounds a bit like waterboarding to me. I don't know. I really don't know. I don't get into the whatever doctors do with their patients, but I don't know what purpose it was supposed to serve. But Mal-de-Bark syndrome, I had to look it up, and I think you sent me a message about that a few weeks ago. So a neurological condition after a cruise, aircraft flight, or other sustained motion event. So it's you feel like you're still on the boat after you've left it.
You
keep doing. So that would be classified as a vestibular disorder, I would imagine. The vestibular system is right where the cochlea is, and that's for your balance. We all know balance is in the ear. So with that ear infection she had, ear infections often start tinnitus as well, because that's inflammation. And normally you would expect the brain to stop the changed transmission of the sound, this changed processing of the sound again after it's gone. Maybe she still has it. I mean, if she still has that syndrome, that might still be ongoing. So that would still be firing it up as well. Anxiety and trauma don't help it, of course not. And you do not need to know what the trauma was. You can work content-free with trauma, childhood trauma, etc. For example, the emotional detox kinetic shift that Andrew and I use a lot. That's one of my standards. I use that almost all the time. And well, she's now potentially lost the trust in the medical establishment. I don't know what's going on. So is your question how to help her?
Yeah, basically.
Okay, yeah. So I would personally do content-free trauma, a content-free trauma session, emotional detox, and use a few techniques to reduce the anxiety. If that's not complete, then with the emotional detox, do the kinetic shift as well. And I mean, that's a pretty crappy situation. I mean, any techniques you find useful normally in normal life for anxiety and you know, maybe it's even in the way of a phobia now, getting, I don't know what her issue exactly is, whether she doesn't want her eyes blindfolded anymore, or, you know, what else is happening. And well, you are helping her with the debarkment syndrome, so I would keep on working with her on that, because that should reduce
the stress is really overtaken her now.
So the stress is overtaken it. Okay, right. Yeah. So that's my first step, and then see what's left. Yeah. What else is there? And the she'll need back a sense of control, and this goes for any tinnitus client really. Most of them have this learned helplessness, especially when it's chronic, when it's longer lasting. And it might not even show up as that. Yeah, it shows up as, well, there's nothing I can do about it, isn't there? But learned helplessness actually does change your brain as well, and stops you from having the hope and the positive emotions that you need to address everything head on. So that's another thing to do, give clients back control. That's also with anxiety clients. That's usually the thing. You can't normally get them into a trance by doing a PMI, you know. Yeah. So a long, slow induction, you know, just relax, because they won't relax. You know, you need to assure them that they have control all the time, blah, etc. So especially with anxiety, giving them a sense of control is important. So the way I work,
do that with every client.
Good. Okay, good. So if you need anything later on, Stephen, just message me. Just what I do is I do look at the results of the session a week later. And what I always do before the first session is ask for SUDs, subjective units of distress. And it's very, very funny, because we tend to forget really quickly when we've had pain how bad it was. We're really quick to forget negative things in the past. So I've had clients who said, I have tinnitus at a level of 8. Then the next week or 2 weeks later, they came back and said, no, it's gone up again. It's become worse. And I'm like, oh, you know, that was in the beginning, like, what's it now? Well, it's a 6. So it's worse than it was. And I'll read them the notes from the week, from the time before. And it's like, well, actually, it's gone down. I mean, it's very subjective. I know that, you know that. And it's not an objective measure, but it is the subjective experience that I'm interested in. And if you can give the client the belief, oh my God, hypnotherapy has done something last time, so it can do something next time as well, or this time as well, that is a powerful convincer, basically.
Yeah.
One of the things I have found is that, and it's only recently really that I started doing this, it just seemed to, and that was with the vestibular stuff, once you give them control, show them that they're in control. And the only way I got this lady on my side was by I got her basically because I'm looking at MDDS. I wasn't even looking at this tinnitus. That was like a bit down the road. But I get them to balance things in the mind. I've got my daughter who's got it, and she's doing that now in Miami when she's flying.
Yeah.
And it actually works because they feel that they've got control.
Yeah, exactly. So a feeling of control is really important, and we achieve that with visualization as well. I'm going to mute you, Stephen, because we need to continue. Thank you, and
Okay,
let me
sorry.
know how you
Yes,
get on.
thank you, Stephen. Good to see you.
You've muted yourself. So giving clients a feeling of control and visualization is very important as well, that we can, we do need to change it's called maladaptive neuroplasticity, tinnitus as well. So with hypnotherapy, we can change the brain again. We can change the pathways, but it very often does take practice and repetition. So
Yes.
I don't just work with one session. If in the beginning I worked with one session and just book your next, and then they go, well, I didn't do anything because they've forgotten how bad it was before.
Yeah.
And then they don't book a second session, and you ask, and then they're like, oh, really? Oh, yeah, it did do something. So that's why I work with a 5-session system now.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask, because I've done it and you've done it. We've done it on single sessions, but at the same time, that's not a guarantee.
Nope,
You
it
know,
isn't.
and I think with the likes of this type of condition, you would say 5 sessions is a good place to start. I would,
Yeah.
But again, and this is what I would also consider in those sessions, is you mentioned learned helplessness.
Mm-hmm.
So going back to the topic of what you're speaking about at the Irish Hypnotherapy Conference next week, about reframing tinnitus.
Mm-hmm.
Someone who has learned helplessness,
Mm-hmm.
how do you reframe that?
How do I reframe that?
Sorry, how do they reframe that?
How do they how do I help them reframe that?
Yes,
So,
that was my third attempt, and then I stopped. So there we go.
So it starts with with your public social media, etc. What you put out, how you talk. So I know it works. I know hypnotherapy is a great way of doing it. I mean, even the old way, studies that we've had a 70% success in improving quality of life and reducing the distress. So that is on par with some of the most successful therapies that they have at the moment, which are all at around 65 or lower, or only work for specific populations. And I believe, that's what I call hypnotherapy. It's like the Swiss Army knife, because we've got so many ways we can go.
Yeah.
And that's why 5 sessions. I mean, it can work in one session. That has happened before as well. I mean, that's the, as you said, emotional detox and Freddie Jackman's arrow.
Yep.
That can work, and it can work for a long time, but that very much depends on the client. And what I do not want to do is for them to go back to, another thing that didn't work. Because, so we don't just work on the psychological, on the stress side. We can also work on the somatosensory side. If it's a stress thing, if it's muscles, if it's TMJ, temporomandibular joint disorder, meaning that you have pain or stiff jaw, etc., or even mucked up dental work. That can help very well as well. So if you can remove chronic pain or reduce chronic pain, you can reduce tinnitus. It's very, very similar in the way it works, and also the way the psychological side goes, as in learned helplessness.
Okay.
So we can work on the somatosensory. So we've got auditory. We cannot do anything directly in auditory. We can, try to give some healing for the ear, but it's usually not in the ear that the problem is.
No, okay.
But if the client imagines and believes, it may be able to heal to rewire the pathways in the brain. Somatosensory. Now, inflammatory. We have lots of scientific proof or evidence, not proof, that hypnotherapy is very helpful in reducing inflammation, in improving immune biomarkers. We can work on blood platelet counts, etc. That changes as well with just one session of hypnotherapy. Blood pressure, and if there's blood pressure issues, that can cause tinnitus as well, but I would send anyone who does that to the doctor as well. Also with certain types of tinnitus, if it's pulsatile or only on one side, you send them to the doctor. So last one, psychological issues, of course, we can help with that.
Okay. So Denise has asked us a very good question.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything specific that you say to clients upfront to help set expectations, especially if they're feeling really distressed about their condition? And do you use any particular pre-framing to help them trust the process?
Right. The pre-framing is that I describe to them what I see is possible for them, that we work together, so that they have to be ready to, to trust the process as well. It's not me doing things to you. Hypnotherapy is not a drug that you take and then forget. You do have to do a lot of work as well. And it is always repetition. So I do give clients exercise as well, self-hypnosis or EFT, whatever fits for them. And okay, what else? What have I forgotten now?
Is there anything specific you say beforehand to set the expectation? I suppose one of the things you said was basically that hypnosis is an internal state, not an external force, really.
Yes. Well, hypnosis, well, you could say that, yes. I tell them how hypnosis... Yeah, I tell them how hypnosis works in general. And yeah, basically, I mean, that's what I do the research for, so that I can explain it to clients. And, it's very hard to say it in a general way. So I do need the avatar, or I always work to the specific client. And then if they come to me and say they had, trauma when they were 2 years old, or, other issues, if they say, I believe this is the reason why I have tinnitus, then you've got the solution.
Yeah.
So that's if they say anything, I don't just go, my route. I don't have a set methodology of session.
Yeah, but with the pre-framing of it,
yeah,
and setting the expectation, would a good way of doing that be to describe other people you've helped with similar issues and giving them the sort of social proof, if you like, that you have done this many times before?
Yeah, that's another good one. I just had something in my head and now I've forgotten.
My fault. This is my fault. There we go.
No, that's okay. Oh yes, right. So another good one to do is during a session, you can give them the idea that they will get a sense of what it is that caused this. And that might happen immediately, today, tomorrow, or next week. So over the time, they will be thinking, over the week, they'll be thinking, so what caused this? Even subconsciously. And that sets things in motion. Because the point is, many people experience tinnitus as a problem, but don't have a solution. They can't even define it. They don't know where it came from, what it does. It's like, a virus that you can't escape from. Where can I go? I can't go anywhere. I mean, it's in your head, so you can't go anywhere. And that's what makes a lot of people anxious and panic and even catastrophize. Oh my God, this is never going to happen. Oh, another one, if you come across a client who even has suicidal ideation, that can happen. Do not work with them. No way. And the other contraindications count as well. Schizophrenia and psychosis, etc. Anything active going on, do not work with them.
Yeah, bipolar, that type of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that should be understood for any hypnotherapist, really.
Yeah, yeah.
Where was I? Get me back on.
I've sort of lost my train of thought as well, but we were sort of pre-framing.
The problem. Yeah. So what you want to do is get them from the problem to solution focused. So if they're concentrating on the problem, I can't sleep because I have tinnitus. You want them to concentrate on the solution. So if I do self-hypnosis once or twice a day, and the next session, that's going to solve it, or I can see how it's already going down, or I can hear how it's already going down, that is going to be the best weapon you have.
Okay.
Best tool you have.
Yeah, and I suppose, like, how do you initially, I suppose another addition to Denise's question is, if you set the expectation for someone who comes with tinnitus, but it's actually a form of tinnitus where you probably won't be able to do much with them? You know, what way do you work with that? Say it's something like what we were talking about, an irreparable sort of damage or something like that. Arguably, you know, do you just work with the anxiety first? If they probably have some form of trauma or PTSD or something in there. Do you work with that first, or do you just say, sorry, I'm not sure I can assist you here?
First of all, do a session to see what you can achieve, The least we can achieve is the habituation, because almost everyone gets to habituation. I don't know many people who, continue catastrophizing throughout
Could
their...
you elaborate on what you mean by habituation? What do you mean by that?
Habituation means it's not switched off, it's still there in the background, but you're not focusing on it all the time. It's like a dent in your car. When you've got it new, it's like, oh my God, that's so annoying, dent in my car. But after a while, well, I haven't fixed it, and then it's like,
Oh, there's a dent in my car. Okay, so it doesn't have the same potency. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, exactly. So you disconnect the distress. You break the cycle, that vicious cycle that we've had, that we talked about.
Okay.
So you remove the distress and refocus. Acceptance, yeah.
Yeah, there we go. You beat me to it. There we go.
But anyone who comes to you for tinnitus has normally given up. Well, you can call it not quite given up and still has hope. Acceptance is, yeah, well, it's never going to go away. But you get them to accept and habituate. And if you get them to de-stress enough, then it can go. I don't see a reason from what I've seen that it has to stay. We've just not found a solution in science yet.
Okay. So with your presentation next week, obviously it's reframing tinnitus.
Oh wait, I do need to say I don't always get any tinnitus to 0. So that's important. We can't always do everything. I can't promise an outcome. Okay.
No, fair enough. I suppose that's the same with most hypnosis issues. What was my question there, Astrid?
Reframing tinnitus.
Yes, reframing tinnitus. So reframing for better client outcomes. Okay, yes. So is there anything else you'd like to add about what you're talking about next week?
It's going to be a bit more structured than just now. I'll actually have a presentation to show. We decided on this interview format just to make it open for questions.
But we don't want to spoil it, do we?
No, we do not want to spoil it. We want everybody to come to the...
Yeah, we do. It's really a fantastic event. But I suppose what I'm saying is, as a result of delivering this presentation, what are you hoping to achieve?
Okay, what I would like to achieve is more acceptance for hypnotherapy, especially in the field of tinnitus, because it's very under-researched. And the only reason that they are not looking at it, or that CBT is the gold standard in combination or standalone in tinnitus therapy, is that it is very well researched. So that's the only difference. There seems to be either there's more money in it, or it's just, once you get traction for one thing, it becomes more and more, and more people want to research it. So I hope to do that for hypnotherapy as well.
And is this something that you had considered maybe branching out into like a course, or being able to teach something to people, or not?
Yeah, I'm running a workshop actually on it, because you can't just research all the time and not at some point make something out of it, and just not give it away in a structured way. So yes, I'll be having a workshop in May, the 24th and 25th, online. I've not quite decided on the duration of it, but it'll be probably 6 to 8 hours a day, 6 probably. And yeah, I'm going to offer it for not for the first time, for the second time next week, and for the first time today, really, to the Mind Explorations group. Yeah, so it's going to start as a workshop, and then at some point I'm going to turn it into a proper course with even scripts and with methods and all these potential clients that you might have that I've come across, the avatars.
Well, I look forward to seeing that. So does anyone else have any further questions for Astrid?
Oh, yes, please ask. Or have I answered everything? I don't think I have. There's so much more, and I don't remember anymore what I've said.
No, I think
Nobody has any questions.
we've exhausted everybody.
I think
So,
so.
well, look, I'm looking forward to seeing you next week.
So am I.
And
What have
yeah,
we
it
to-
is a great event. You and I have experienced it, a couple of, well, I've been there every year and you've been there, this is your second time.
Mhm.
And yeah, there's still tickets, as you said, if anybody fancies coming. And you have a very interesting discount code, Astrid.
Haha. Oh yes. Oh, for the hypnotherapy conference.
Hmm.
Yes. Oh God. Let's put the Irish Hypnotherapy Conference, the link into the chat. So this is the link to the Irish Hypnotherapy Conference if anybody is interested to come, and the discount code for that
Astrid
is Astrid. Exactly.
or Andrew, but
Andrew.
yeah.
No, I'd rather have them in my name because then
I understand that. That's why I did this for you. See the way I threw myself on my own sword there.
you never know. You might get a pat on the back for having more discount codes on. But okay, right. The
There
said
we go.
workshop. Okay, said workshop for that I'm preparing on tinnitus is going to be here. That's the next link I'm posting, and it is for about 200 euros plus tax. But because you guys are cool and I love my group, I have a coupon or discount code, Mind Explorer. It's in the chat. And if you decide to help me, to support me by booking on early, it's on the 24th and 25th of May. You get the whole thing for approximately £50. That's including tax if you're in the UK. Yeah, that's 75% off. And that's valid until the 3rd of April. And after that, I won't be offering it that low again. So if you want to book on, I've created a Facebook group today. And yeah, it's not set up yet. It's got one member, that's me, but I'll be working on that in the next few days. And then on the 24th and 25th of May, we'll be having a live workshop that's going to be chopped into lessons and then be a proper course. If you join, then you'll get all lifetime upgrades and all the new research that I find, because I'm not going to stop, because after the conference, it's not one subject that I'm doing and done. I'm going to keep going. So until we have hypnotherapy for tinnitus as a research subject. Yeah.
No, great. So thank you for all your hard work. Thank you for letting us know all about what you've been doing. And I look forward to seeing you next week.
I look forward to seeing you as well, Andrew. Thank you.
I'm going to hand back the reins to you and say thank you.
Oh, I get the reins back. Yeah, thank you everyone for coming and thank you for listening. And I hope it wasn't too complicated. And as I said, and as Andrew said, hopefully we'll see you next week at the Irish Hypnotherapy Conference in Dublin. It will be a lot of fun.
Yep.
Are you coming, Julia? Oh, you are. Oh, wonderful. Oh, great.
Oh, fab.
And whoever else I don't see in Ireland, I hope I'll see in Vegas or in Detroit or in where else? I've got
Kangaroo.
I think I'll be going to
Bangor, Ireland.
maybe as well. Okay, thank you all for being here. I'm going to stop the recording now. If you guys want to stay, have any questions, any other questions, you can stay on, the ones who are live. If you have seen this whole episode and you are not bored yet, if you would like to know more, just put whatever you want to ask or to know or to say in the comments wherever you see this on Facebook or on YouTube. Thank you all and have a good evening. Bye-bye.
Bye.